The overwhelming majority of students in New York City's public school system are African American or Hispanic. But when it comes to the city's elite public high schools, the racial mix is strikingly different. Melissa Russo has new information in an I-Team investigation.
Specialized high school has science and math.
Tell me what your dream is.
I really want to become a medical doctor.
I want to be a criminal lawyer.
I hope to be a scientist.
Become a doctor.
I want to be a doctor.
One day I went for presidency.
They're gifted students with big dreams.
I'm really good at math.
I'm very, very good at math.
I know I'm smart and I know I can do good. And I just want to get the opportunity.
The opportunity to get into one of the city's 9 exclusive specialized high schools.
I want to go to Stuyvesant High School.
Go to Stuyvesant.
Stuyvesant.
I hope to go to the Bronx School of Science.
Stuyvesant or Brooklyn Tech.
I want to go to Stuyvesant.
But the odds of getting into a specialized high school like Stuyvesant are against kids like these, gifted Black and Hispanic kids from poor families. At Stuyvesant, widely believed to be the city's top public high school, just 2% of this year's incoming 9th graders are Black and 3.5% are Hispanic, according to preliminary enrollment numbers obtained by the I-Team. Those numbers show the racial gap persists at other specialized high schools as well. The primary obstacle? A standardized test taken in 8th grade, the one and only factor considered by these schools.
The selective high school system hovers above the New York City public schools, like the Emerald City and Oz. The only way to get to it is taking the yellow brick road through this testing system.
It's a test experts agree is extremely difficult to pass without tutoring.
It makes a tremendous difference.
Schools Chancellor Dennis Walcott admits some of the skills needed to pass the test are not being taught in school.
I call it test sophistication. A lot of our students don't have the sophistication on knowing how to take tests.
You don't know what strategies to use.
Different strategies on how to solve a problem.
I didn't learn those things in my school.
Who's going to rate problem number 1?
So this year, the chancellor launched a free program called DREAM to help prepare these students whose families cannot afford private tutoring. They used a random lottery to choose 2,400 of the city's most gifted low-income students.
Sentence pairs and transitions. They're going to work us through the paragraph.
I think that everyone should have the chance to be in the DREAM program because it really helps.
I would like to go to Stuyvesant. I've heard it's really nice there.
Jonathan Ettricks is a gifted student who didn't make it past the DREAM lottery process, so he's left to study on his own.
I certainly cannot afford to have the same type of tutoring that a child in the DREAM program is getting.
But Jonathan will be competing against students in the DREAM program and many more whose parents are paying thousands of dollars a year for private classes years ahead of that high school test.
I can't even fathom where I would find that in my budget.
The chancellor says he hopes the DREAM program will help level the field. He's literally bringing these free tutoring classes into communities of color, but his budget is limited, and there are a lot of equally gifted children of color out there who did not get in. Tomorrow at 6, we'll take a look at the enormous number of Asian children studying at those private academies we mentioned and getting into the specialized high schools. We'll also talk about culture and the quest for the city's top schools.
They are the city's most elite public high schools. You've undoubtedly heard of some of them, like Stuyvesant and Bronx Science. And the newest numbers show they are accepting astonishingly few African American and Hispanic students. Melissa Russo looks at what critics call a system of segregation and at what the chancellor is doing about it in this I-Team report.
It's a gifted child. He has been reading since the age of 2.
By all academic measures, Jonathan Ettricks is a gifted student.
I would like to be like a detective or a lawyer because I like criminal cases and civil cases.
He dreams of going to the city's top specialized high school.
I would like to go to Stuyvesant.
And tries not to be discouraged by the disproportionately small number of Stuyvesant students who look like him.
It is alarming to see how low these numbers are.
Just 2% of the incoming 9th graders at Stuyvesant this year are Black. 3.5% are Hispanic, according to preliminary enrollment numbers obtained by the I-Team. The one and only factor used to decide who gets into the specialized high schools and who doesn't is a standardized test, which experts agree is difficult to pass without tutoring.
They want to work us through the paragraph.
Schools Chancellor Dennis Walcott is trying to change the odds by bringing enhanced, extended preparation courses to gifted students in poor communities of color, where many parents cannot afford private tutoring.
We're adding to both the pool of people eligible to take the test and hopefully qualify.
Can you help us out with the equation?
It's called the DREAM program. For the 2,400 gifted students lucky enough to have been selected by the lottery, it could have lifelong benefits.
It gives them an opportunity to compete at a specialized high school and to go to a very high-performing college, and then it really helps them with their income and earning power.
Jonathan did not make it past the lottery process, so he has to study on his own.
I read through little tips in books.
He'll be competing not only against the DREAM students, but many more whose parents are paying thousands of dollars a year for private classes, years ahead of that high school test.
I want to go to Stuyvesant High School.
An increasing number of students are spending summers and weekends at private tutoring programs like the Elite Academy in Queens.
We say it's never too early to start anything.
I've been coming here since around first grade.
It would be great if it could be provided to everyone so that everyone has a fair chance to be able to get into these schools.
Director Jeannie Kim says her program cannot magically help students pass the test if the potential's not there. She says it's true her customers can afford tutoring, though some struggle or use payment plans. But she says specialized high schools are also a huge priority for her predominantly Asian clientele.
Their culture is, sort of on the Asian side. They're used to going to school 6 days a week.
Roughly 71% of Stuyvesant's incoming ninth graders are Asian. With competition stiffer than ever because of all the tutoring, there's no question Walcott is doing more to give Black and Hispanic students a better shot. But 1,200 gifted low-income students were left out of the DREAM program lottery because the city budget is simply limited.
I feel sad for many because they have the potential.
There are a lot of Black kids who are smart and don't have this opportunity that I have.
Critics say, bottom line, as long as the material and skills on that test are not taught in the public schools, certain children will miss the boat for the top high schools, even if they're gifted. The chancellor tells us the answer is not to change the test, but maybe to expand the DREAM program in the future so that all gifted children have an equal chance of passing.
Now to an update on an I-team investigation. The federal government has opened an investigation into whether the admissions process at New York City's top high schools discriminates against students of color. It's an allegation News 4 government affairs reporter Melissa Russo first revealed back in September. She has the latest on today's development.
They're widely considered to be the best high schools in the city, if not the nation.
I want to go to Stuyvesant High School.
Go to Stuyvesant. I really want to become a medical doctor.
Criminal
I hope
lawyer.
to be a scientist.
But for Black and Hispanic students like these, the chances of getting into their dream schools are slim to none.
I would like to go to Stuyvesant.
Now, the U.S. Department of Education is investigating the city's admissions process to its specialized high schools after a civil rights complaint was filed back in September by several groups, including the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
African American and Latino representation has been very low for a number of years. It's actually gotten worse in the last decade.
Look at the newest numbers at Stuyvesant, first reported by the I-Team. Of almost 1,000 students who got in this year, 32 were Hispanic, 19 African American.
Nothing matters. Your character doesn't matter, your grades don't matter, your state mandated test scores don't matter in all the years prior. The only thing that matters is a single test on a single day.
It's a standardized test taken in the 8th grade, the one and only criteria for admission.
Make a proposal, so what do we do now?
Critics say the city has never evaluated the test to see if it fairly predicts academic performance. And they say students of color and from low-income families are at a disadvantage because their public middle schools don't teach the tricks and skills needed to pass. Plus, they face competition from an increasing number of students taking expensive tutoring. When that civil rights complaint was filed, Mayor Bloomberg dismissed those concerns.
Life isn't always fair. I don't know how you would take away the right to get tutoring or how the public could pay for tutoring.
In fact, the city does pay for tutoring for some, but not all, of the city's thousands of gifted students of color, specifically to try to close that racial gap at these schools.
That gap now officially under investigation, according to a letter from the U.S. Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education can force the city to make changes, and we've had no response today from the city public school system. But they have in the past argued that they're required by state law to use that test when making admissions decisions for these schools. But Chuck, there are also some discussions already underway about changing that law as well.
Now to an I-Team investigation. News 4 has learned the New York City public school system is facing a federal discrimination complaint, charging that Black and Hispanic students are being shut out of the city's top high schools. As Melissa Russo reports, the complaint from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund puts the blame on a flawed admissions process.
I want to go to Stuyvesant High School.
I hope to go to the Bronx School of Science.
I know I'm smart and I know I can do good if I just try hard at it.
For many families, having a student accepted at one of New York City's specialized high schools is like hitting the lottery. And the ticket is passing a standardized test taken in 8th grade. That test is the one and only factor considered by these schools.
This policy has been in place for decades, and also for decades there's been a significant disparity in terms of who gains admission to the schools.
Overall, fewer than 12% of students in these top schools are Black and Hispanic. At Stuyvesant, enrollment numbers reported by the I-Team last month show of the 967 students offered admission this year, 32 are Hispanic, 19 are African American.
Ranch is correct for that one.
Many families of color in New York simply can't afford tutoring, and the strategies needed to pass the test are not all taught in the public schools.
The policy is simply unfair to students of all races. It actually tells them your grades are irrelevant, your work is irrelevant, the only thing that matters is your test score, and that's simply wrong.
The complaint, to be filed tomorrow, claims the use of just one test is a violation of civil rights law, not to mention unheard of.
Even Harvard doesn't do that. Most selective institutions use multiple measures to make placement decisions, to make admissions decisions.
Last month, schools chancellor Dennis Walcott told us he expanded free tutoring programs for low-income, high-performing students.
The start of this program was to address that and to create equity and really increase the diversity of students attending the specialized high schools.
Melissa Russo, News 4 New York.
And in addition to Chancellor Walcott's comments, we also have an additional response from the City Education Department telling us state law requires that admission to specialized high schools be based solely on an exam, and that on average 31% of students in specialized high schools are low income.